Yo, welcome in everybody, and today we're going over the people's top 30 COD pros of Cold War. The competitive COD Reddit ranked all 30 COD pros for the year. And I thought, I kind of do a lot of that around here. So I thought, why not? We could go through this thing. I haven't looked at the top 30 yet. So this is gonna be my first time seeing this, my first reaction to some of these guys, and going through it with you and talking about some of the guys that they got absolutely wrong. And some of the guys that got right, of course, as well. So without further ado, let's get right into this one. Let's go. Alrighty, so how this is decided is pretty cool. I like how they do it, actually. So there's basically like a little poll, and then you have to pick who the best player of Cold War is. Then you have to pick the number 2 through 9 or 10, and then you have to pick number 11 through 20 and 21 through 30. So it's gonna be a little bit weird with some of the votes, I'd imagine, because you're collectively ranking off of everybody's like people who receive the most votes to be in a certain category. So it might be a little bit inconsistent at times, but either way, I'm looking forward to this one. I did submit my own like submissions for the top 30 as well. So I was already thinking about this a little bit going into this and talking about how they did it. So I am excited to see what they got for us. Alrighty, so here we are on the post, Reddit's top 30 players of Cold War, and off the rip, there's no surprises here. Simp, Abezy, and Cammy as the top 3. And it looks like there's maybe a few hundred votes on this poll with players who received best player vote. So maybe like 500, 600, 700, somewhere in there amount of votes on the poll. Shout out to the Attach fan down here. You gotta respect that. Who got Attach got a best player in Cold War vote. You gotta love that. Simp, Abezy, Cammy, Cellium, Insight, Shotzzy, Scump at 7, Standy at 8, Hydra at 9, Kleenex at 10. So let's just start with those top 10 players before I kind of let my eyes drift down the list. So the top 10, Scump's the player who probably stands out to me as a little bit too highly rated, but that's not any surprise. We know you guys love Scump out there, so it only makes sense that Scump ends up pretty high on this list. Realistically, I think I had him at number 11 in my top 20 players of Cold War video, or it was right around there. It was either 11 or 12. So that's kind of where I generally would rank Scump this year, because I think on the year, Hydra, I think he's locked and loaded top 7, top 8 type player this year. He has been unbelievable. Standy's been fantastic. But overall, this list has a pretty good feel for the top players of Cold War. I'm digging the list so far overall. Again, like with Scump, it's just the balance of S&D, hardpoint, and control, and how I talked about a lot on the channel this year, how in rankings videos, it's easier to remember the great plays insertion destroy, and Scump had a ton of great plays in S&D on the season, but realistically, hardpoint is slightly more important in competitive COD, and that's important to kind of take into consideration when a guy like Hydra is so dominant in respawns on the season, and he was still good in S&D and control. And so overall, I think Hydra's balance and upside would definitely put him above Scump on the season. And then Standy's an interesting debate because he came in later as well, plus Scump was still very, very good. And then Kleenex is tough as well because he had a lot of really, really great moments, and so did Scump. But Toronto was winning more often as a squad, and Kleenex had a lot to do with that. And so you could debate maybe Kleenex over him as well. And that's why in my video, I had Scump on the backside of those 4 SMGs. But let's not kid ourselves, because all those guys are fantastic, and you can definitely win a championship with any of those guys for sure. So, all right, let's look down the list a little bit more here. Top 20, we got Dashy, Arcides, Bance, Kenny, Envoy, Clayster, Asim, Attach, Octane, and Vivid. Interesting. I'm a little bit surprised to see Kenny at 14. Bance at 13 seems a little bit high to me because he had obviously the unbelievable stage 2 grand finals. He had some really good moments on the year in different games and was obviously really important to Toronto's success. But from an individual perspective, it's hard to say, at least from a performance on an individual basis, that Bance was a top 13 player on the year. I would have him in the top 20 still, but maybe closer to 20 than to 10, So that would be one thing. One guy that I immediately realized isn't here, which I think is insane, and I'm looking over here and he's at 27, is Skies. I truly think Skies was absolutely individually a top 15, 16 type player on the year. He was fantastic. beginning to end, all the way through. And so Skies is the one guy that I think deserves to be in that top 20 who isn't, for sure. I mean, that he was great literally from the beginning to end of the year, basically. I know I'm higher on Skies than the majority of people, but 27 for Skies seems shockingly low for how consistent he was as an individual performance as a main AR on the year. The Dashy and RCs at the top of that tier makes a lot of sense. They were fantastic on the whole season. Kenny would be probably the next biggest surprise for me. Envoy at 15, that's about right. I think I had him in that area as well. And then you have Clay at 16, Asim 17, Attach 18, Octane, and Vivid. Vivid's an interesting one. I mean, considering how talented he is as a whole. When you look at like Draza, Neptune, Afro, Illy, Priesta, I'm a little bit surprised that Priesta's at 26. And then you even go down the list a little bit farther and some other guys. So I guess we can keep reading through this and we can talk about some more of the surprises. So at 21 through 30, we got Draza, Neptune, Crimsix, Afro, Illy, Priesta, Skies, Gunless, Formal, and Slasher. So overall, I think that's a pretty solid, like Awakenings at 31, Major Maniac at 32, 33 Mac, Hook, Paul X, Scraps, Aqua, Diamond Con, Havoc, and Pristini. I'm a little bit surprised to see Awakening outside the top 25 or 26. I feel like he should at least be in that top 25, 26. I know his last 2 stages weren't very good, but his first 3 stages were literally unbelievable. So there's a kind of a give and take there when it comes to Florida. Maybe I'm just higher on Florida considering Skies and Awakening are so low here. Like the fact that neither Skies or Awakening is in the top 26 players seems a little criminal to me, but the few guys I think should be a little bit lower. Bance and Kenny I think should be outside the top 15. You know, you could make a pretty good argument for Asim. You can make a pretty good argument for Attach, for Vivid. I mean, Octane individually, he's an interesting one considering he did play pretty well, but then on LAN he played very well. And so it's like, how much do you weigh the LAN versus the online? And how much do you weigh the later stages versus the first 3 stages? This definitely feels like the last 2 stages and champs were heavily weighted in the rankings here, which I understand. I mean, you want to be best on LAN at stage 4, stage 5 and champs, but you know, there were another 3 stages and like 5 months to consider as well. So I do want to give a little bit more of a shout to some of those months. Draza is an interesting one because you could argue that individually he could be higher, but the team situation kind of dragged him down. But I think 21 makes a lot of sense for Draza with him having a lot of upside heading into next year. And then you have a guy like Afro again, who showed a lot of flashes of the chance to be great, but we need to see it in a consistent basis on a really, really great team. So that's fair as well. Crim at 23, his S&D was really good on the year. So I could see an argument for Crim being higher considering like Clay's at 16, Octane at 19. So I could see an argument for Crim to be higher. Overall, I mean, I would say Skies is surprisingly low. Priesta feels like he's a little bit low considering his stage 3, stage 4, stage 5 was very solid. I think Awakening is very low. Mac at 33 seems a little bit surprising. I think he could be a little bit higher. And then Hook, I know he had a really rocky stage 5, but he didn't play stage 5 in champs really. When he played, he was really, really good. So I could see an argument for him being better, especially considering he was a top 5 player in stage 1. So overall, to summarize, I think I would say the most underrated players were Skies, Asim, and Mac, where they probably need to just get bumped up a handful of spots each, where Asim's probably like maybe top 13 or 14, and then Skies is top 20, and Mac is at least top 26, 25. The most quote unquote overrated, that's very contextual, but I would say Scump should be number 11 or 12, but he's still really good. Don't get me wrong, Scump fans. And then Bance and Vivid are probably the other 2 that come to mind here as slightly overrated. I would say Bance is like 16, 17, 18, 19, somewhere in there. And then Vivid would be like 23, 24, 25, somewhere in there, with the other guys moving up a little bit. So overall, it was a really solid list. The only other thing I would say is I'd still have Cellium over Cammy. Overall, I mean, Cellium is so freaky good. And so is Cammy, but I think I give the tiebreaker to Cellium because of his dominance in control, specifically on the season, as undoubtedly the best control player on the year. So That'd be my tiebreakers for Cellium and Cammy. But I mean, both of them are great for sure. So overall, guys, drop your comment down below. Give me your most overrated player in the comments and give me your most underrated player down below off this list. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say, and go to town down there debating away in the comments. I'd love to see it. But again, I'll be live streaming the beta this weekend, Vanguard, things you'll love to see, twitch.tv/SalvationsElite. I'll be balling over there, frying, but well, we'll see. But hope you guys enjoyed it. Like, comment, subscribe, share the video if you guys really enjoyed it. But as always, guys, I'm your boy SalvationsElite, and guys, we'll see you next time. I'm out.